Successfully doing things as varied as biting into a hamburger, riding a bike, or reading a book requires you to process sensation, what's called sensory integration. Sensory processing disorder is a condition that exists when sensory signals don't get organized into proper responses. This chronic disorder can disrupt a person's everyday life. Here today from Buffalo Hearing and Speech Center to tell us more and to explain what can be done to help is John Petruniak and Gretchen Kampke. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so let's start, you guys. When we talk about this, first of all, Gretchen, what does a sensory processing disorder look like, and who has these?
Well, not every person with a sensory processing disorder presents the same way, and it depends on the location of the dysfunction in their neurological process. So for some individuals, they over-respond to sensory information, and they can have extreme reactions to different types of input, or they avoid the sensations altogether. And others under-respond to sensory input, and they are constantly seeking input, and they are constantly moving. And children and adults are affected by sensory processing disorder. We work with preschoolers and kindergartners who have sensory processing disorders.
So can you tell me, John, how a child is impacted by sensory processing disorder? And give me an example of what it might look like.
It has a significant impact on children. Sensory processing disorder is needed for academic or school success or even their childhood accomplishments. The children that have these difficulties, they may have attention or behavioral problems. They might be labeled as the uncooperative child, disruptive, out of control. They might have some play skill difficulties, decreased self-esteem. They might have problems with some fine motor, gross motor, oral feeding skills, and even normal activities, like activities of daily living, such they might have problems with just feeding, toileting, bathing, dressing, and even sleeping.
So Gretchen, give me some more of the signs of sensory processing disorder, some of the things that a parent should look for and maybe have evaluated.
All right. John mentioned a couple. A lot of these kids really struggle with self-care tasks, tolerating toothbrushing and hair washing and hairbrushing. They have a hard time tolerating different textures of their clothing.
At what age would you see that?
It could be as early as babies having a hard time with the movement involved in changing a diaper and not wanting to lay down, or some babies are affected so badly that they don't even like touch from their parents.
Okay, and John, what causes this disorder?
That's a pressing question for parents. The exact cause of sensory processing disorder, like causes for ADHD or other neurodevelopmental disorders, there really isn't a cause.
Sure.
The Sensory Processing Disorder Foundation has been doing some research, and there's some contending theories. It could be environmental or genetic, but there is more research that is needed to identify an exact cause.
I've seen firsthand children with the sensory disorders. I've seen what Buffalo Hearing and Speech can do. You can turn around how a child is processing this. Gretchen, tell me a little bit about what you do.
Well, it's sensory integration therapy, and it is a fun, play-based therapy in a sensory-rich environment, and we are really looking to get these kids to increase their participation in tasks that are meaningful and that they once found as sensory challenges.
And it's amazing how much progress you can make, so everyone's going to have to check you guys out. Thanks for being
incredible.
here. Appreciate
Thanks for having us.
It is incredible. Buffalo Hearing and Speech Center. They offer an early childhood program and clinical services for children with sensory processing disorders. Based on individual needs, and their sensory integration therapies can help a child with sensory processing disorders to respond appropriately so they can function properly at home and in the classroom. More information, it's available online at askbhsc.org or by calling Buffalo Hearing and Speech Center at 885-8318. Coming up next, our friend Tom Lorenz will be here to explain Maine Mobility's new program, Just Ask Tom, and we'll do just that. We'll ask Tom. Then Brian Stiller from VA Western New York Healthcare Systems will talk about the healthcare services they provide for our local veterans. Don't go anywhere. Western New York Living will be right back.
This segment of Western New York Living was paid for by Buffalo Hearing and Speech Center.